o'clock p.m. Has everybody had the opportunity to review the agenda?
Yes.
Any additions or deletions? Chief, yes?
Yes, I'd like to add the reserve report to the agenda, please.
Very good. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd just like to add that we want to discuss adding a new replacement officer.
Okay.
Laughlin.
So add that as number 4 and then move Deer Call down to number 5?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay. Anything else for you?
Nope. Nope.
I just had one because we were talking about temporary promotions, but we have a position for sergeant actually available, so I was going to add actually a permanent promotion to sergeant for discussion with that tonight.
Number would
So we'll
that?
add that
what's
as
just
number 3, temporary and permanent promotions. Are you guys okay with that language?
well, I mean, I was prepared to come here for a temporary promotion, but wasn't sure we were doing permanent promotions right now.
Okay.
And without the full commission, I think we should wait on the
Okay.
full.
That's fine. Very good. So not.
That's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine.
All right, so then we will not add that. Any other additions or deletions or modifications? Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as modified?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes of August 17th, 2021? Ranka?
Yep.
Any modifications or corrections to those minutes?
No.
Motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on, liaison report, Mr. Jurecki.
Really nothing to report other than I've been spending a lot of time at the township, you know, talking to various people, managers, so on and so forth, you know, about what we can do to help, you know, the police force do their job under these extenuating circumstances that they have been under for quite some time. As everyone knows, they were out roughly 33% at one time of their people were gone, and really that's kind of the basis, I think, for the agenda that we have tonight. So I think we'll cover all that material and issues and so on and so forth. So that's pretty much my liaison report.
Good. Reserve report.
Good evening. First, I'd like to start out with the August events that the reserves worked for the month. On the 1st, we had the Inkster motorcycle fundraiser ride. We had various motorcycles that came onto the island. They kindly did a ride along East River, came to the airport. It was towards for officers that fallen officers through the Inkster Police Department, and also for their auxiliary program. So we supported them with that, making sure that the roadways were safe and making sure that the traffic was taken care of during that. We also had the Ford Yacht Club Regatta. We supported that as well. We just kindly canvassed the area. We didn't really stay in the yacht club, so just kind of canvassed the area, make sure things were safe with that detail there. On the 21st, we had the Sims Run, which is a pretty good size run that we have every year. Went fairly well. Wasn't any type of medical emergencies or anything like that. So that one went great as well. And then on the same day, we had the Garden Club Festival. Was towards West Croft there, so kind of had family, friends, mostly residents that were there. We kind of go down through there, show them the police car, with the kids, interact with the public. So went really well for that as well, all in the same day. Total for the month of hours for the reserves was 51 and a half hours. So for a slow month, it was pretty good. We had quite a amount of details for the month. One thing to note is that Sanada Tala, one of our reserve cadets, is in the academy for Reserve Academy, is doing very well. So hopefully soon he will be going through graduation. So expecting for that soon as well. One thing that I'd like to mention is that we're accepting applications for the Reserve Department unit. We're looking for 2 to 3 individuals. We'd like to promote a video that we have had created to promote that, and I'd like to, if you guys don't mind, have Doug come up and show that to you guys and present that.
Very good.
Thank you, sir.
For the last couple months, we've been talking about this reserve recruiting video we're going to make. So we got it done, and this is it. And if I could play it for you guys, it's about 6 minutes long.
All right.
Not pick the music, but here you go.
Hello, I'm Sergeant Doug Carmack, the Midnight Shift Road Supervisor with the Grosse Police Department. I also serve as the department's liaison for the Police Reserve and Cadet programs. As we all know, the community of Grosse is a great place to live and raise a family. Being an island separated from the mainland by 2 bridges makes Grosse independent in many ways. As first responders, the reserve unit plays an intricate part of our public safety program when called upon. During this short video, we would like to show you how they interface with the rest of the public safety team in providing assistance and services to the department and greater community. Our highest ranking member of the Grosse Police Department Reserve Program is Captain Wes Price, and his second in command is Sergeant Chris Smith.
Hello, I'm Grosse Police Reserve Captain Wes Price. I joined the Grosse Reserve program in 2013. During my time with the department, I've seen the reserve unit grow with department involvement and community interaction. Our reserve unit is comprised of 8 to 12 men and women dedicated to serve Grosse Township. Once a reserve officer has completed the hiring and the training process, they will have the opportunity to interact with the sworn members of the Grosse Police Department. A reserve officer carries many responsibilities. For example, assisting with directing traffic, for traffic details, and contributing at community events such as Island Fest and assisting officers when called upon. One of the most important duties of a reserve officer is to be an additional set of eyes and ears within the township, to be ready to assist road officers when called upon and act with direction. At this time, I'd like to introduce Reserve Sergeant Chris Smith.
Hello, I'm Sergeant Christopher Smith with the Grosse Township Police Department. I started my career here back in 2008 as a police cadet, and in 2013 I attended the Wayne County Regional
be ready to assist road officers when called. I'd like to introduce Reserve Sergeant Chris Smith.
Hello, I'm Sergeant Christopher Smith with the Grosse Township Police Department. I started my career here back in 2008 as a police cadet, and in 2013 I attended the Wayne County Regional Reserve Police Academy and continued my service here with the Township Police Department. I used the knowledge, experience, and training I gained to help further my own law enforcement career.
Station 16, Adam 4, System 1622, traffic stop.
Copy.
Both the Reserve and Cadet programs meet once a month where we schedule upcoming events and receive additional in-service training such as defensive tactics, CPR, legal updates, and community trends. These meetings are in addition to road patrol and service detail activities. The minimum requirements to become a Grosse Police Department Reserve officer are: you must be a U.S. citizen, 21 years of age, in good health, sound mind, and of strong character, able to acquire a CPL, pass a thorough background investigation, and complete an approximate 18-week Reserve Police Academy. Each new Reserve officer will receive additional training through an in-house field training program and continuing in-service education.
Grosse Township is a unique small community with a long history of being one of the safest communities in Michigan. Our 11,000 friendly residents, great school system, and community involvement only strengthens where we live. If you are looking for a way to volunteer to the community, have an interest in law enforcement, and can meet the requirements, the Grosse Police Department is currently looking for men and women to join the Grosse Police Department Reserve Program. Applications can be picked up and returned to the Grosse Police Department Dispatch located at 24525 Meridian Road. Thank you for your time.
And that's the video.
11:13:01.
So what I talked to Chief Hardin, we'd like to bring it to the board and have it played at a board meeting so we can get a greater viewership and displaying the reserve program a little bit further to try to draw some residents as applicants. We're looking for 2 to 3 people to get into the reserve program. So we haven't had any applicants apply in quite a while. So then we're gonna put this on social media.
Yeah.
It's approved by you guys and then the board.
I don't have any issue with it.
No, I think it's great.
Good idea. I think you guys need to get out there and promote yourselves. You'll find some individuals that are interested in, what you do for the community. So, I'm certainly behind it. We just need to, make an effort to get it on the agenda or whatever.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Franca, anything?
Nope, looks good. Good luck with the recruiting efforts. I know it's not easy right now.
Hear a motion to approve the monthly reports.
So moved?
Yeah. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on to the discussion items. Chief, you're going to go over the general overview, right? Okay.
Good evening. I wanted to bring everybody up to speed kind of on our department activity that's been going on since mid-August. Mid-August, the department sustained a significant blow to our operations. We had 8 individuals that were off, 7 off on COVID, 8 that were off entirely on medical. We also had one that intermittently was on family medical leave, and then we had another one that was towards the end of the month separated from the department. So we've had a significant manpower adjustment to deal with. Currently, there were 4 people still out, and today, actually in the last 24 hours, we had a emergency medical run, and 2 individuals sustained exposure to an individual, so now they're off. So we were recovering to 4, but today we just kicked it back to 6. So during this significant impact that we had with COVID, our officers, specifically Sergeant Carmack, Officer Todd Brozek, and Detective Eric Vasquez, those are our senior mid-level supervisors. They really stepped up to the plate. They took over for management that was not reporting to work due to medical illnesses, and they pretty much were given a task that they weren't seeing, they didn't expect, and that they had to adjust to and be creative about. And they did a stellar job, from my understanding. I just wanted to give them congratulations. They worked in collaboration. They worked extra shifts. And then I also want to bring into the entirety of the department, because it wasn't just those 3. Other individuals that are all the way down to the most junior officer or the most junior dispatcher, they collectively foregoed a lot of personal commitments, family commitments, anything that you could think of. They adjusted their schedule to accommodate the conditions that they were presented with. So to the entire department, I want to say thank you. Great job. Our manpower status, ideally we want to keep at a minimum 2 officers on the road, and that, from my understanding, was always in play. So we did not suffer any losses in our serviceability to the community during this event. I do know our officers are tired. They're starting to show fatigue. But, if you lose a significant amount of your staff, that's going to happen. So I want to state that right now, one of the officers that is the most significantly having issues is Lieutenant Kenneth Pelland. It comes from me with heartfelt and warm regards that he has a rapid recovery from this. He has been impacted by this situation the worst, without getting into the privacy issues of family and such. I know I could speak for everybody in the police department that we wish for his rapid return, his rapid recovery, and for me, I do say prayers daily for his rapid return to work. Right now, I would just like to see him rapidly be leaving the hospital and on his road to recovery. So that is where we are with Lieutenant Pelland. The other officers, they're recovering well. We do have a policy that we were under the original COVID conditions back in 2020. Sergeant Carmack has rewrote those policies to adapt to our current situation. So I'm not going to get into the minutia of that, but there's a lot of behind-the-scenes activity that we're doing to adjust to the conditions that we're being presented with. I can speak that I know there were 2 or 3 other departments downriver that were impacted in the same type conditions, but it was when COVID hit us the first time last year. We're probably one of the first downriver departments that had such a significant hit in this time frame for 2021. The conditions that Sergeant Carmack was presented with, he pretty much became a chief rapidly, and from my understanding did a real good job. But I would like to call him up here for a couple of seconds if he could just kind of give a little synopsis of what he was dealing with and just a few comments. I'm sure he can give us a little bit more insight than I can.
Thank you. I don't know where I didn't prepare for this. I'm sorry, but I got the call when I was on vacation that we were having some staffing issues with COVID. If I can say that, came back from vacation. Within a rapid 3 or 4 or 5 days, we lost about 8 people to medical leave, administrative leave, which handicapped the department staffing, like the chief had said. It's basically, we locked down the department, continued our services to the city, just changed our protocols, separated everybody. This lockdown got resupplied on PPE stuff. Equipment wrote some new policies. Just took it from there. And then the department as a whole, officers were canceling their days off or canceling their vacations, not arguing. Just everybody's just picking on a dartboard, picking days to fill in the holes to keep our staffing for the city. A lot of hours spent by all the officers. Like the chief had said, everybody, and the biggest help that was forgot was Ruth. She was absolutely, for me, was paramount for doing what I had to do. I didn't have access to some things, which is fine, but Ruth was able to grant me the access and get it there, and she brought it home. She really did. It was a huge asset for me to help keep this all together. Officer Brozak, Officer Detective Vasquez, we're all, even down to, like the chief said, everybody chipped in on that. So there's not much more I could say than what he already said, but, so.
Questions?
Maybe just a comment. I think you guys did a great job, and I'm sure I'm speaking for the entire commission. I gotta say, I know it was a total team effort, and everybody stepped up. You know, Ruth, Doug, the whole group. I have to tell you though, spent probably 35 years in management and have come across a few crisis situations, and I was really impressed, Doug, when I picked up the phone and talked to you and said, geez, how are you handling this thing? And you told me what you were doing, and it certainly made sense. And then, you know, what happens if it gets worse? And I think you had your current plan A, you had a plan B, and a plan C. I've seen a lot of plan Bs, but I haven't seen a lot of plan Cs. And that was pretty damn impressive. So congratulations to all of you. You did a wonderful job. And, you know, hopefully we can take a little bit of the heat off you. You know, so some of the things we're going to talk about tonight, but you really did a fine job. Your entire team did a fine job, and it's great leadership. So thank you.
No, spot on. A great job, Doug, and the whole department. I know everyone stepped up, and a lot of personal sacrifice with vacations and personal time and family events and so forth. So it's not unrecognized.
It was everybody, because if they wouldn't have cooperated, people wouldn't have cooperated and said, I'm not going to cancel vacation, it would have never worked.
Yep.
It would have never worked. It was everybody, so.
Very, very fortunate for the willingness of everyone to do that.
That it? Thank you.
Moving on, next issue, Chief, you're covering really all of these, correct?
Yes, sir.
You're the man in the spotlight tonight, right? So moving on, status of staffing and applications for the eligibility list for clerk, dispatcher, and police officer positions.
Yes, so what I did was I put a flow chart that just shows our hierarchy within the police department so that you would have a reference point. We did receive the resignation and retirement of Michelle Roehrig. Her last day will be September 28th, so just not but a short week away. She exceeded 32 years of service, and she's been in records for about 15 years. This was brought up at the earlier township board meeting, but it does deserve repeating. Michelle created a position for herself. It really didn't have a dynamics or a job description, so she actually formulated her own plan, and as more tasks were put on her, she created a position that met all the needs of the department, and it met all the needs for her job function in the back office to handle FOIAs and to handle discoveries and to handle a lot of the computer operational systems for recording and for devices that we do for in-car camera systems and audio that goes in and out of our in and out of our police department with radio traffic in reference to phone traffic. So she's a cog in the wheel that's really important, and she did a great job. She's going to be missed. I said it extensively during the township board meeting. She's going to be hard to replace because the commitment that she had to this job, she really checked all the boxes. There's a 2-page job description that she has, so she had a lot of responsibilities, and Sometimes whenever you're just doing clerical work, it goes unnoticed, but she was really a great asset to that. And so as we look for her replacement, it's going to be a challenge to find somebody that fits the shoes. So with that, our staffing conditions. Right now we asked for, I'm going to start off since we're on to the dispatch part. We solicited for applications for dispatcher. We only received one. That individual is a former police reserve officer who had a number of years with the police department. As a measure to keep things moving, we're bringing him on, which is within our collective bargaining agreement, for a 90-day period. He's going to be rapidly trained, and then he's going to fulfill the shoes of a clerk dispatcher temporarily for a 90-day window. It's been agreed upon with POAM, with our union, and so Sergeant Carmack was tasked with getting this gentleman on board as rapidly as possible, and we're going to do a rapid background investigation, which would just pretty much will cover when he left the reserve program until now, and then we're also going to do our regular background for our detective bureau, to where they'll just do a precursory interview of anybody that he's been involved with, but with past employers, and then we'll be going into a medical screening to just make sure everything's okay. So I'm hoping to have that done within the next 7 to 10 days and to have him on board with this 90-day window period until we can find a full-time individual. Having said that, the reason I state that he's being hired part-time is because we did extend our window for more applications for clerk dispatcher. And that window of time will expire on October the 8th. So we're still taking in additional candidates. This part-time individual will have the ability to test for the full-time position, but he will be in competition with the other candidates, if there are any, that would be forthcoming coming on that October 8th deadline for clerk dispatcher applications.
Let me ask you a question that I don't expect you to have the answer to, and I truly mean that, because I just kind of thought of it, but this is a gentleman that's retired, not probably interested. Is he interested in full-time?
Yes.
Okay. In the event he doesn't make the cut for the one job, would we be able to use somebody like that? And this is more of a union question. That's why I don't expect you to have the answer. But, Doug, maybe you can help me out on this. Could we use someone like that to supplement when, dispatchers are out, as opposed to, further draining our full-time staff that it's working, overtime, police officers and so on and so forth? Does that present a problem with the union? Because it'd be nice to have a couple people like that,
Within the contract, it allows us to hire a temporary 90-day person until that position is fulfilled. So that's where we're at.
So that's all you can do. So after that 90 days is gone and you're missing a dispatcher for whatever reason for a 2-week period, and it presents a problem because we're missing other people, we can't pick up the phone, call someone like that and bring them in.
From my understanding and interpretation of the contract, not at this time, no.
Dave, we've been through the contract. Derek, we've been through the contract. I don't know if we recall seeing anything on that, but that's just something we should keep in the back of our minds, I think, because it would probably be helpful. I'm sure some people would probably welcome the break, but all right. Thanks. That's good to hear. I think you guys are down the right path. I'm glad you're extending it, and it's good.
So if you look at the flow chart here up on the upper right, it says records clerk in this area right here. So I don't want any confusion. So there are 4 dispatchers at the bottom. So the position that this part-time person is fulfilling is a clerk dispatcher, one of the positions in the bottom that would be actually operational on one of our shifts, answering phones and doing the work. It's going to come up to interpretation of how we handle this, but the records clerk, with the retirement of Michelle Rohrig, we're going to need to fill that position with one of the candidates that are the current dispatchers. That's historically what we would like to do. So just understanding we do have 2 kind of green or new dispatchers, and then we have 2 currently senior dispatchers, and then we also have the part-time, which hopefully would be a full-time, after the 90-day window period has expired. So what I'm trying to explain is that these 4 dispatchers, one of them may be looking to replace Michelle as the records clerk, And in doing that, it's going to be competitive. It's going to be up to I'd start off with the police commission to make a determination of, do we isolate it to seniority? Do we isolate it to having those people that in our internal test for that position that want to? And do we also include the new dispatcher that gets hired permanently, let's say? Are they eligible to apply to test also? Because, maybe they're bringing something to the table, or some background or some education or some training in all of the systems that we operate in. So does that make them eligible to apply for that position or not eligible to apply? So those are questions that we're kicking around, but I just want you to be aware that there are some dynamics that we're actually filling, a couple of different positions here. It is actually a dispatcher, but it's an overlap as a clerk dispatcher records. So the next thing that I want to go over is the police officer, unless anybody has any questions on the dispatchers. I'll entertain those right now.
I guess when are we expecting to go through the next steps of the process, right? So we're approved to hire someone, or to at least go from the board to go look for people, right? So now it's a matter of collecting resumes, and then when would we anticipate that we'll be looking through those resumes and trying to select an individual?
Let's stick with dispatchers on that topic. So October 8th is the expiration date. So I would hope to be able to go through those applications within a week or so, and then to get the process moving to interviews as rapidly as possible, because we are running out of the time on the 90-day window with that individual that's part-time. So I don't want that to expire and us not to have that position fulfilled by then.
And then what's the timing expectation for moving someone into the records position?
That'll be at our discretion, and I guess it'll be determinant upon which action you want to take on fulfilling that position, whether it be seniority, opening it up to everybody, or however that would be filled. So I have no dog in the show or pony in the show to determine which and who that position is filled with. So I'm open to those suggestions.
There's nothing in the contract that binds one way or the other?
Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge, unless somebody brings it to my attention, but.
And that would be a coveted position because it's primarily during days, because you've got to answer FOIAs and everything traditionally during.
Yeah. It's a sought-after
traditional
position.
business
It's
hours.
days, weekends off, and it's Monday through Friday. So yes. So it has its perks. Some would argue that seniority should play into that, and some would argue, the best candidate for the job. So that's up for further discussion at a later time. Okay.
Does it pay more, Brent, than a typical dispatcher?
No, they would be in the same hourly rate, but because of her classification and the seniority of time.
I think you get the most qualified person for the job. If there's nothing else holding you back, I think that's important. There's some, that's a big job. It's an important job. There's a lot of tasks associated with that job. I think I saw the list. I think you've explained it to me before. I mean, they handle all the FOIA requests and
Yes.
just a whole bunch of things, all the other court matters and things like that. I mean, you need a performer there.
Yes.
That would be my advice. Unless there's something that says you can't do it, the best person for the job, period. Yeah. I don't know. Matt, what do you think?
Is there any specific training that they go through for that position?
There is. There's
HIPAA.
actual FOIA classes. There's what's called MICR, which is our crime reporting classes. So there's a litany of programs that they would need to go to. And then familiarization with all of the software packages that we use for the in-car camera systems, for the radios, for the telephones. It's quite a comprehensive list.
How long does the training typically take for that?
Years.
Very good.
But ideally, the dilemma that we had earlier on was that we were trying to cross-train some individuals with her job function for FOIA. I did send another individual that wasn't her to micro training just because she was available, and that was facilitated, which helps us out now because we need somebody that is able to do that function, and she's the go-to person now when Michelle leaves. For the other tasks like FOIA, COVID impacted a lot of the in-person training that we had over FOIA classes. So I would, some classes I did have lined up, wasn't able to fulfill those classes because they were canceled. So we're looking at almost a year and a half, over a year and a half, that a lot of these classes that we would have had people cross-trained in, we couldn't facilitate those because of the lockdowns and the closing of schools. And now everybody's pretty much going into the virtual training programs, so we can do that. However, on the day-to-day operations, I just told you what we've been dealing with for the last month and a half, so it's not conducive of us to send somebody to training in the middle of these situations. So there's a lot of dynamics and a lot of nuances that we're being presented with every day. So, but to answer your question, within 2 weeks after the application deadline, I'd hope that we'd be starting backgrounds and doing the interviews.
And you'd mentioned testing for the position. Do we have actual tests that we would be able to put the people through and assess skills?
When I say test, it's going to be an interview process. So it's going to be subjective to determining what their qualifications are.
Yeah, I mean, just hearing this tonight for the first time, I would recommend, if we're not locked in by the union, I'd side with Mike saying that the most qualified person for the job, right? I think seniority comes into a play from a tiebreaker type
Understood.
of a scenario, but
Right. Okay. We good with the clerk dispatcher there for now?
Yes.
Okay. All right, moving on to the police officer positions.
Just one more thing.
Yes.
We're going to follow the same process as we did on the last one, where your team handles the interviews and stuff like that. We'll get involved with the interviews for the officers, but not necessarily for the dispatchers and dispatcher clerk. That's how we handled it last time. I think we have to give them direction. I think we're happy with that. We think you're totally capable, and we'll follow the same process this time.
Understood.
Yeah. Good.
All right.
Moving on to the police officer position. So for sake of argument right now, I'm just going to show you our flow chart here. So ideally, we have a lieutenant that's the actual supervisor for day shift. We forego a sergeant on that shift just out of brevity. We just don't want to keep a redundancy there. But on each alternative shift, so afternoons would have a shift supervisor as a sergeant, and midnights would have a shift supervisor as a sergeant. So that just covers all three shifts that would have a supervisor dedicated to that particular shift. Right now, Sergeant McLaughlin was the afternoon shift supervisor on this shift, and right now that position is open and vacant. So my presentation to you today is that we're looking to fill that position and to have an officer hired and then to promote an individual for the sergeant position that Sergeant McLaughlin has since he has left. The application process for police officer expired on September 3rd. We have 9 applicants right now. 2 of them, I would say, may be disqualified right from the initial viewing, so that brings us down to 7. So we have 7 candidates, many of them police officers at other jurisdictions or retired from other jurisdictions. So we have a pool of candidates that are viable. Right now, just for this discussion point, we're looking at replacing the 1 officer and looking for hire. So that process, we've narrowed down the applicants. We're going to begin phone calls and determine if they're still interested in the job, and then we're going to start pursuing the follow-up, setting up an interview. So that's where we're at with that. Anybody have any questions on the applicants?
The process on that, so will that be, you and your team get it down to a set, 2 or 3 candidates, and then the police commission views those 2 or 3, or do you want the police commission involved with all 7 of them?
If that's what we did the last time, I think it would be more manageable to get down to a manageable number, and then for the police commission.
Is that how we handled it last time?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Not have been here.
The last time it was, I believe, you guys, the department chief, deputy chief, and lieutenants did the interviews to narrow it down with the detectives doing the background checks, and then there was initial rounds of interviews with the commission, and then a second round of interviews with the commission.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the process.
Seemed to work.
Yeah.
There's really like 3 rounds, right?
Yeah.
So you guys do the initial screening. Okay, here's the candidates that we think are eligible. We get involved, and then we go one more time. And I think a Also involved and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but also involved would be the chief of police as well. Would they be involved with those interviews? I think you were, for sure.
Chief Hardin was involved in the
Yeah.
interviews with
Right.
Officer.
Did
Canterbury.
we have our second in command there as well? I think we did, yeah. So I think it'd be probably a good idea to follow that same process. We all agree?
Yep.
So that's what we're gonna do, Brent.
Okay,
Make it,
that's fine.
give you clear direction. All right.
We will facilitate that.
So we're not gonna do anything, we have 2 open positions right now? That's correct?
Well, we can go further into discussion if you want to go into that, absolutely. So,
I know there's 2 openings. You know, my thoughts are that we go for 1 right now because it could be a rougher road to get 2. We're in an over budget situation right now. I spent a couple days working with Ann on that, and she's convinced me that, we have 24 people on our chart, but, we don't have budget right now. And obviously, with all the COVID issues and things like that, and people retiring, it'd make it almost impossible to bring on a second person at this point in time. So I think we focus on 1. I struggle with it because I look at all the overtime we're working, and it doesn't take a whole bunch of hours in overtime to justify bringing on another person when you got 4 or 5 people off, right? We don't know how long that's going to last. So from a business perspective, I really struggle with it. But I know we have self-imposed restrictions, and I think we'll save that discussion for another day. But right now, I think 1 for sure. We got our list, and we'll go from there on that. I think we all agree on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to go with 1 for sure, right? I mean, the OT is one thing from a financial standpoint. It's another thing from a burnout standpoint,
Yeah.
and from a continuing operations standpoint. I know you put together the overview here on a very data-driven approach, which I think is the right way to do it, right? So I think we move forward with what we have approval for right now, and we work with the township board and look for the next position as well.
Okay.
Mr. Jurecki, whenever he says the data-driven, was that the stuff that we discussed with Ann? Is that what you were referencing, or no?
All kinds of stuff.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, there's stuff from a lot of different parties. State staffing.
I guess I'm just asking is it, we're not visiting the second officer right now?
Not
so-
today.
Okay,
I don't think so.
all right. Nope, that's fine.
And I think that kind of clarified for our addition, which was number 4 for the additional police officer, of where we need to go with that, so. Is there anything else under number 3?
And we still have to talk about, discuss temporary promotions.
I'm sorry, number 2.
Number 2.
I apologize, number 2. Anything else under number 2 for questions or?
I'm good. I'm good. I know we got some real smart people sitting here in the room. Joe, do you have anything to add to any of that? You think we might as well utilize your talent? No? Okay, good.
Chief, then moving on to number 3 with the temporary promotions.
Right. So right now, we have the lieutenant that's off, and then we have Sergeant McLaughlin's position that's vacant. So my proposal is that I would like to make acting positions. I'd like to elevate Sergeant Carmack to the acting lieutenant, and then I'd like to take Officer Brozick and make him a sergeant, acting sergeant. So there has been some discussion of permanent sergeants. I'll address that in a few minutes if you want to go deeper into that. But
Very good.
right now, that's my proposal. What that would do is it would just allow us to have a hierarchy, and I think positional authority helps out a lot to where somebody has an understanding that they're in a certain title and a position, and it gives them a little bit more more credibility and more authority. So with the conditions that we have right now, I don't find an urgency to make these permanent positions. I think those situations are for a later date, that we just have a lot of dynamics that are going on in the department. And I'd like to just have everybody just say, let's take a step back and do an overview of everything and get everything where it needs to be before we start, trying to push forth a lot of different agendas and a different, topics that need to be addressed. So that's my initial proposal. With the position for Sergeant Brozek, though, we do run into some contractual obligations. So when we have positions that if you're not a sergeant but you're serving that sergeant's role, we have what we call step-up pay. So contractually under POAM, we are obligated to give him that stipend to where it would come out with him. It'll probably be an extra $4,000 per fiscal year for that right now. There was discussion points that myself and with Sergeant Carmack taking more leadership roles and being given a 5% raise. I'm declining that. I'm not speaking for Sergeant Carmack. He can address that topic for himself. But for me, I'm not asking for that 5% increase. I would ask you to have your private discussions with Sergeant Carmack with what his thought process is on taking the promotion to acting lieutenant and where that would go with him. But we are under the contractual obligation with Officer Brozek being promoted to sergeant, so he needs to be made whole with that sergeant position.
This is not unlike any other step-up pay, right? I mean, this happens on different shifts quite often.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So not a precedent issue. This is just standard operating procedure.
Correct. If you look on the left on where Sergeant afternoon shift is, we did not have Sergeant McLaughlin on for an extended period of time. The senior patrolman 1, that would be the senior guy that's working afternoons, would get what they call step-up pay in our department.
It's an automatic.
Yeah.
It's an automatic.
Yes.
It's going to be an automatic with Sergeant Brozak. So we're contractually
Yes.
bound to pay him step up. So that's an automatic, where it wouldn't be with yourself and Doug, officer, yes, Sergeant Carmack. So, no, I respect that. That's good. Appreciate you stepping up and taking that position. I think that's good. I think everybody's doing more than their share these days, and Brent, you've stepped up quite a bit.
Thank you.
And I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. So, I think we certainly support. I support that plan. I can't speak for everybody else, but I think that's something we need to do immediately. And I think, Derek, you've done that in the past, right, without board approval, and or actually Dale has, I should say. And I would encourage the township to send out the necessary letters to recognize the elevation on a temporary basis of the two individuals, so that it makes Brent's job a lot easier. It makes their jobs a lot easier.
So is the right thing for us to do then to approve a motion that we, support, Acting Chief Hardin's recommendation to promote, Todd and Doug to acting sergeants?
I think it would be correct.
Yes, I just like the formality. That way it could go to the township manager, and then he can make his recommendation to the supervisor, and then we can get the blanket authority from both here and from the township.
Very good. Do I hear a motion?
Yep, we'll make that a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 None.
Very good.
So, Mr. Jurecki, so we did addition number 4 for additional police officers. Did we cover that already, though?
I think we covered it,
Because I
yeah.
didn't see that as a second
Well, it's
as the second part of the sentence. So,
yeah, we covered it.
okay,
We just covered
very
it.
good.
So,
then Chief Deer Call, I guess.
So we did a uncharacteristically fall deer call. We did get approval from the Michigan DNR to do this. Right now, we've met our goal that we had, and we asked for more tags. I don't want to give the numbers out until it's done, but the next meeting I'll give you the numbers. But we've met our objective that we had, and we've exceeded our objective. So we're on a trajectory to try and double that. So
Very good.
that's where we're at with that. So I apologize, but normally the informational sheets that we have on all the different activities of the department, those are assigned out to numerous different individuals. And as I explained earlier, a lot of those individuals aren't at work, and we did not have the ability to formulate our packets that we normally distribute. And then that's what we use as our template to be able to communicate that information to the township residents. So unfortunately, a lot of those fact sheets are not complete, or we're trying to assemble them collectively so that we can give you a good presentation. So I apologize for that, but we're under a certain amount of conditions, and we're going to remedy that during the next meeting. So I just want to explain that.
We knew that ahead of time. We wanted to have the commission meeting, today specifically to address the chain of command and, the additional officers that are needed
Sure.
in dispatch and the records clerk. So we appreciate you still putting this together on such a very limited amount of information that was available to you. Is there anything else then, Chief, that you'd like to cover?
Yeah, there's just one last thing which I wanted to bring the attention of everyone to. It's just part of our monthly report. The animal control officer is going to be off on extended medical starting the beginning of next month. We've made a reciprocal arrangement with Woodhaven Trenton Animal Control. So what we've done is they have 2 part-time individuals that operate that service to Trenton Woodhaven. And what we have done is that there will be a communication out that if you have a need for any type of surrender or there's any kind of dog bite or anything else, we'll be soliciting the services of Woodhaven Trenton to service our calls here while she's off on medical. Historically, we only have about 3 of these a month, so it isn't like we're going to be overtaxing their abilities. But there's certain training and nuances that the animal control officers have that we just can't let a volunteer do for liability purposes and stuff, and dealing with certain wild animals, or let me rephrase that, certain wild domestic animals that are in control. We don't want to put the volunteers at risk. There's certain training that Julie has and that these individuals from Woodhaven has that requires us to go to an outside agency for liability purposes. So
Very good.
the medical is projected to be a month or 2, no longer than 3, which would push us into December. But I'm hoping for a rapid recovery. So.
All right. So are we just going to dispatch over to Woodhaven Trenton if we need their officer to come here as needed then?
So the incoming call will come into our dispatch. They will field or vet the call to determine the best course of action. There will be still volunteers at the shelter that can handle certain types of complaints and calls, but those that would require the services of the outside agency, the dispatchers will have an understanding what the criteria is. We also had to make agreements with Paul Smoke with the bridge company. Sergeant Carmack finished closing up that the other day, so we have that situation taken care of, that they'll get passage and the vehicles will be identified so that we can get a rapid response if we need to from those individuals.
Very good.
So we've got that base covered pretty well. Julie did a really good job. We made this proactive situation about 2.5 months ago, well, actually 3 months ago, 3 months ago. So we were prepared ahead of time to get this in play, and it should be flawless, and it should be no different. Julie's hoping that once she is at a better level of her recovery, something she'll be able to do remotely. So, but she has a good working relationship with a lot of the community and can kind of field a lot of calls, and we'll move forward.
Very good.
All right. That's the end of my report unless anybody has any questions.
Gentlemen, questions? No? All right.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Public comment? Anybody? All right.
Bueller.
No public comment. With that, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. Record time.